Hey guys, it's Mitch. How's it going? Hey, look at that. It's two awesome Wolverine covers in the same week. What are the odds? We're taking a look today at Uncanny X-Men number 234. So just before we get into it, if you enjoy the channel, if you feel like you might want to help out a little bit, go subscribe on my Patreon. Links are in the description, gives you early access to everything I do, helps out the channel, helps to buy new comics. Okay, so this, of course, is the Outback era of the X-Men. We're wrapping up the Little Brood storyline that's been going on for the last couple of issues. If we recall what's been happening, the Brood have actually invaded Earth. Generally speaking, before now, they were always kind of dealt with in space, but now they're on the X-Men's home turf, and we got to see how that'll go. A couple of X-Men have already been turned to the side of the Brood, and the remainder are going to have to fight off them as well as some previously unknown mutants who have also been infected by the Brood. So we should start things off with the cover here. That is fucking awesome. This isn't a cover I remember seeing too much of. There's certain covers, of course, that you can't help seeing over and over again, or that would pop up, say, in Wizard somewhere. Particularly Uncanny X-Men. I think one of the ones I remember seeing most often was number 201 with Storm versus Cyclops. This one I don't remember seeing before, but like, holy shit, is that arresting, eh? Got a full-on brutified Wolverine. Got this awesome color palette going on, where it's not quite like two-tone, but it's all, these cool kind of creepy colors. And Mark Silvestri's ratcheted the cool factor on this up to 11, with the high contrast shadows, with all the super defined musculature. Hey, neck stretchies, too. We haven't seen too much of that up until now. This isn't really the age for it yet. And, of course, his version of the Brood face, which is easily the most monster-like of the Brood iterations. Yeah, for a cover I haven't seen before, that really stands out. And that's another one that I should think about paying homage to someday. The difficulty with coming up with an homage cover is it's hard to justify making the focus anybody other than Hawkstab or Popo. Hawkstab's kind of the leader of the group, and Popo's the joke character. Everybody else is kind of supporting cast. I could see a situation where potentially you're using some of the other guys like Fireburn if you're doing a Human Torch parody, that kind of thing, or Hard if you're doing the Hulk, or Extremis if you're doing any cover that has a woman as a prominent figure. But just for straight, like, subbing in random character for random character, those are kind of the two main ones. I guess I gotta hope that everybody else digs those characters as much as I do, anyway. So we're gonna start things off. We are in Denver. The X-Men at this time, of course, are based from Australia, but they do have the ability to teleport anywhere in the world thanks to the Mutant Gateway. So the location of their headquarters doesn't really affect anything at this time anyway. And we're going to start things off at a swanky diner. I read the description on this. It seems a little unlikely, where the Mile High Diner started out as a rest stop for workers on the railroad. And then the town eventually dried up around it and it fell into disrepair, but then it got rejuvenated, maybe kind of gentrified, and now it's got this new hip crowd that likes to attend this fucking old school diner that serves just like nice food at a reasonable price. So it's like, I don't know how likely that is. But Claremont assures us that this is the hangout hotspot for Denver's chicest retro trendoids. Which says to me that Claremont has never been in any kind of chic hotspot. Not that I'm one to stand in judgment. And before we move on, I should say, these figures are all awesome. Are they all mail order? Was that the deal? I knew Fridge was mail order. I did not realize about Major Blood and Bazooka, or the Hiss Tank. That doesn't seem like it should be an exclusive toy. I feel like if you made the Hiss exclusive, you're just missing out on money. Maybe they just didn't have it back into circulation. Anyway, we should probably get back to the comic book. So inside the retro trendoids, notice a giant flash out the window here as Dazzler and one of the mutant/Brood members crash into the diner. Nice big splash for it, twisting the figures up nicely. Like, that's just a classic splash page. Crashing in through a window is always a good bet for starting off your comic with a splash. Dazzler keeps kind of blasting it with her light powers. I think at this point she's not trying to kill it. There's still sort of an element of the X-Men are trying to resolve this, maybe not, peacefully exactly, but without any bloodshed. But that's becoming an option that's slipping further and further out of the grasp. There's a funny bit here with a couple that just, they're too involved with each other and they keep missing the action that's going on here. The Trendoids rush to the aid of the dude who jumped Dazzler because they identify her as a mutant. And of course, mutants are to be hated on sight. Until the Brood unleashes his power, this is apparently Spitball. So he's got like a fire-breathing power, which he kind of aims in the middle of everybody. Neat stuff. And it feels like the pages are starting to open up for Mark a little bit here, where he's not really cramming in the action. We're still getting a fairly high panel count per page, like 6 or 7 sometimes, but it doesn't feel like we're having to cram in more action than can fit on a page. Another one of the Brood has like tentacles, which it wraps around Dazzler. I think this is tension. And one of the Trendoids steps up to defend Dazzler from the Brood. But unfortunately, the one he attacked is the Brood called Blindside, who will later star in the Larry Stroman comic, The Tribe. And gets his hands on him and looks like he's just going to flat out eat him. Except at that point, Longshot leaps in, kind of pincushions him with his knives, and then he gets snared by Tension as well. But he's not too worried, kind of a goofy shot, because Colossus has crept up behind Tension here. Maybe this isn't Tension. I think Tension shows up later. And grabs him by the head and snaps his neck. And then Blindside comes up behind Longshot, and he's got the drop on him, but at that point, Storm swoops in and hits him with a lightning bolt, which fries him. So that's 2 Brood dead, which is interesting, because leading up to this, the X-Men have been kind of debating back and forth about whether they should be trying to kill the Brood or save the hosts, whether that's even possible. And Storm electrocuting the one and wiping it out isn't against what's been going on up until now. She would have been kind of on Wolverine's side in that they were beyond saving. Colossus is a little surprising because he was still on the side of we can't kill them if there's the barest hope that they can be saved. But it seems they've kind of moved beyond that. So Spitball has seen what's been going on, and he's not going to push his luck. He's just going to run at this point. Rogue's outside waiting. She has been taken over by the Brood, but just mentally, because she had previously absorbed the mind control Brood's powers, but she also absorbed its personality, which basically made her mind control herself. And anyway, she picks up Spitball here, and they fly away. The X-Men have to follow after her. And of course, the smooching couple come up for air for a second, see the trashed diner around them, and go, oh well, and get back to smooching. Meanwhile, back in the Outback, this is where the X-Men have their headquarters. And currently the headquarters is pretty much empty except for Madelyne Pryor, who's unconscious, and Gateway, the mutant who teleports everybody around. And Madelyne Pryor's just had a pretty harrowing dream where Cyclops basically took away everything from her that kind of made her her own person and gave it to Jean Grey. And now they're the happy couple. And she's just this blank figure kind of wandering around in the Outback. And Gateway's watching over her. He doesn't seem to be willing to rescue her. That's not his place. But he is able to monitor what's going on. So I assume that will turn into something. And in Madelyne's dream, she kind of stumbles out into the desert and just kind of walks around under the blazing sun, which melts away this kind of visage of just blankness and turns her face kind of back to normal. Kind of. It's not 100%. She doesn't have the bouncy hair anymore, and she looks a lot more somber, really. And just a bit here where she trips and falls into the ocean so that Chris Claremont can make a metaphor about a newly smithed sword being plunged into water. And Mark gets a chance to draw most of a naked girl, so he's happy. And Madelyne gets helped out of the water by Sim, which is a character that we haven't seen before yet. He's a demon of Limbo and a servant of Belasco. First appeared back in Uncanny X-Men number 160, and I believe he spent a bunch of time in New Mutants, where I guess he probably would have dealt with the character Magic. But also, he's a parody of Cerebus the Aardvark, which I don't know how many Uncanny X-Men readers know. Because around this time, Dave Sim had a character in his comic named Professor Charles X. Claremont that he was kind of poking fun at Chris with. So Chris kind of reciprocated with this big, purple, vaguely kind of aardvarky looking character with the pointy ears and the black vest and the prehensile tail. And I assume that's kind of good-natured ribbing on both sides there. But in this context, as an underling of Belasco, he's probably not a guy you want to show up in your dream to kind of act as your shepherd. As he takes Madelyne to this kind of palatial room here and just kind of sweet talks her and, says like confusing things and says how she can pick her own destiny and how, she's been wronged, but also that this is all a dream and it doesn't really matter. But, still you should make some kind of choices about what you want to do going forward, and kind of holds up some personalities that kind of represent Madelyne. So I think we've got Madelyne as a child, Madelyne as the pilot, Madelyne as the wife/mother, And then this kind of evil-looking Madelyne with the grin as a possible fourth choice. And since it's just a dream, Madelyne picks the evil grin version of herself, which, turns out Sim was lying about that part, as he stabs her with his pinky nail, and she manifests the Goblin Queen costume, I believe, for the first time. And that's where we're going to leave her for the moment. Okay, so from there, we're going to flip to Red Rocks, where the preacher that was introduced in the last issue, he's sort of a faith healer kind of guy, is getting ready to go on stage. Super popular faith healer guy, as faith healers tend to be. Actually, they do tend to be pretty popular, don't they? At least among their own weird little crowds. And overhead, Rogue is flying Temptress and Wolverine. They're looking for a place to hole up. They just kind of happen to be flying over the tent city here. And Temptress is another one of the broods who has mind control abilities. That's the one that Rogue absorbed the personality of. And she's talking about how the brood have implanted Wolverine with an egg and how they're going to do the same thing with Rogue. Rogue's all for it. She's like, I can hardly wait. They mention how Wolverine is already changing. And I mean, physically he is. But his healing power is fighting off the implanted embryo. So I guess he's lasting longer than normal. And he, pops his claws and slashes at Temptress, killing her in midair, which makes for the third brood mutant to get got in this issue. And in retaliation, Rogue hurls Wolverine towards the earth, where he bounces around a little bit before coming to rest. Not dead, of course, but probably pretty busted up. And we cut to a bunch more broods who have stolen a police car and are going for a joyride. And they've captured Psylocke. Psylocke is turned to their side because of Temptress, but it seems like they don't trust her not to revert back, which is probably just a smart way of thinking in an X-Men comic. And the driver isn't paying attention. They direct his view to the front where Colossus is standing right in front of him. Not sure how he got there, but, well, Storm can fly. I guess that's how. Probably in his non-metal form. And just smashes the car right into him there. Rips the engine right out. That's some pretty cool stuff. It's nice to get Colossus to do a little bit, considering I don't think he has pretty much any dialogue in this issue, but he does smash a few things. Spitball gets out of the car and blasts him away, but he gets a lightning bolt from Storm in return. But it also looks like the crash has cleared Betsy's head. Well, I mean, maybe not cleared. Like, it looks like she's pretty obviously concussed. But it's at least cleared out the influence of Temptress, and it's not like she can take hold again anytime soon. And Storm looks like she's going to swoop back in for the kill, but at that point, Rogue has spotted her and tackles her out of the air. And reiterates what we learned in the last issue, which is that the Brood's plan is to implant a queen in Storm. Longshot, Dazzler pull up in a motorcycle. Everybody's kind of traveling in style right now. And they see Storm and Rogue kind of duking it out in the sky. And nobody can really do anything about it. Colossus is kind of out of commission for the moment. Psylocke is just looped the fuck out. And Longshot just can't cover that kind of distance. So it's kind of up to Dazzler to kind of pick her spot here, where she can pick Rogue out of the air with like a maximum power photon blast. But with them jostling around in midair like that, there is a risk of her hitting Storm. And if she hits Storm with that kind of blast, then she's probably going to kill her. But that's where they're at in this story, so she's got to take the shot. And, of course, naturally, she hits Rogue and knocks her out of the sky. Also, since it's a maximum power shot, this gigantic blast of light goes off, and everybody at the Faith Healer event see it as a gigantic explosion in the sky. Considering this story has felt a little bit aimless in the issues leading up to this, it feels like things are starting to click pretty nicely now. So, at the grandstand, the Faith Healer's kind of addressing his flock, telling them not to panic. And then at that point, Wolverine stumbles into the place, which makes sense. I mean, Rogue was flying right overhead when she threw him down into the dirt. And everybody notices that he just looks completely messed up. The Faith Healer goes down to see if he can do anything. And Wolverine's talking about how, there's something growing inside of me. And it's eating me alive. And the Faith Healer figures, oh yeah, this guy's pretty strung out. So maybe the power of prayer can alleviate this bad trip that you're on, my friend. And starts to pray for him, which, of course, doesn't do anything because, he's turning into a friggin' monster. And at that point, the Brood starts to take over his personality as well. And he starts transforming, gets the Brood tentacles going and everything, and the Faith Healer just starts praying harder. And, of course, at that point, that's when Wolverine's healing factor kicks in all the way and is able to expel the Brood embryo like it would any kind of infection. and he starts to revert back to his regular form. Not that the Faith Healer knows anything about that. He just figures, holy shit, it actually worked this time. And at that point, another one of the brood is on top of the bandstand and, wraps up the Faith Healer with the coils. This one I think is tension. One of them with the tentacles is tension. The problem is that they all have tentacles, and two of them at least have tentacle powers. And they don't always name themselves. But anyway, doesn't really matter because that one gets demolished by Havoc's plasma blast. So as far as I know, we are now officially out of tentacle-powered brood. And Alex is busy admiring his shot, or at the very least thinking like, man, I really didn't want to kill people. Now I'm kind of stuck killing people, and I don't like that I have to kill people. But whichever, the pause gives Spitball a chance to, take a shot at Alex, which would kill him, but Longshot, of course, has perfect timing, swings in and grabs Alex up. And so the shot misses him and destroys the bandstand instead, bringing it down on, as they say here, Tension and Lockup. They also said this is Tension, who got killed by Alex. This is one of the reasons I can't keep track of who's who in this. Doesn't matter anymore. We're down to one brood, the leader brood, the first one that took somebody over on Earth. And now he's up on the stage. He's got himself a hostage, which is the Faith Healer's wife. And he takes this opportunity to monologue. He talks about how the brood are going to take over the Earth. They're going to wipe out all the humans as well as all the stupid mutants. And there's nothing they can do with their technology and their fancy superpowers that can do anything about it. And of course, while he's busy having this monologue, Wolverine has carved himself a little cubby hole that he's going to crawl into under the stage here. And he's going to pop up behind him and drag him down underneath the stage, which is a pretty cool moment, I got to say. And when he's got him down, he reverts back into his regular human persona. Basically, the brood allows the human personality to surface back up again. It's not actually a person anymore. It is a brood, but it still has that kind of personality swimming around in its subconscious somewhere. So yeah, he just kind of brings it up to the surface in the hopes that Wolverine won't kill him. But the problem is, of course, it's Wolverine. Wolverine knows that this body is long dead, like the guy who was originally in it. This is just something that's taken it over, and he knows there's only one thing to do about it. And I talked in the last episode about this being around the time when Wolverine was being built up into the number one character in the Marvel Universe. This is another thing, I think, that kind of just adds a little brick to the foundation there. Not a huge one, but stuff like this, where he doesn't hesitate to kill enemies off, particularly when they're not, long-established, unique individual supervillains. And I mean that in this cover, right? All right, so after the attack, everybody's getting seen to by paramedics. Now, news vans have shown up, and they're trying to frame the narrative of what happened. And they start by suggesting that this might have been some kind of mutant attack. But the Faith Healer says, no, this wasn't an attack by mutants. This was an attack where we were rescued by mutants. And he goes on a long speech, kind of speaking for mutant rights. So they got him on their side. That's good. They got the power of God on their side. And we got a little thing here in the corner that might come up later. There's been a subplot throughout where the Faith Healer's wife has arthritis in her hands, and so she's in constant pain. And then just before the Faith Healer went on stage, this woman here asked her if she could maybe help her out a little bit. And now, all of a sudden, her hands don't hurt anymore, which the Faith Healer thinks was something he did, which I guess we can kind of forgive him for a little bit. I mean, he did cure a demon infestation, as far as he knows. But I assume, the woman that healed the arthritic hands is going to come back at some point. She seems pretty happy with the way this all turned out, where he's advocating for mutants now. And we're going to finish up at the X-Men headquarters, where on the screen here we get some film of the X-Men returning. I think this is outside of the actual headquarters, actually. So maybe like a security cam footage kind of thing. And Wolverine's congratulating Havoc for, finally doing the right thing and offing some people. And Havoc, of course, is just feeling even more sure that he's doing the wrong thing by sticking with the group, it seems like. Because he keeps being put in situations where he's going to have to kill people. And we end with Madelyne Pryor sprawled out on the floor, looking like she had herself a night while the guys were out. And we get one step closer to her arc completing. And we also get a big old splash of Wolverine #1 coming out. The regular series by John Buscema. Yeah, it's a pretty killer cover. All right. So that's going to do it for Uncanny X-Men 234. Pretty good wrap up to the series. I'll be honest, I was kind of feeling like this series was a little bit of filler, these 3 issues. And I mean, maybe to an extent it was, but that's because the actual storyline progression, the plot progression, isn't what's happening with the X-Men. It's what's happening with Madelyne Pryor. But, I mean, I think Chris Claremont learned a long time ago to space that kind of story progression out over many issues, like a year or two's worth if you can. So we only get a few pages per issue about what's going on in Madelyne Pryor's life and how it's kind of all slipping away from her. And you need something else to fill up the space while she's kind of slowly gaining momentum down the spiral. So you slot in this kind of a little bit of a throwaway 3-issue storyline where the X-Men battle the Brood. I will say that it's interesting seeing the X-Men kind of push to the point where they're not thinking about mercy anymore. They just have to exterminate them. It's not the kind of thing I've seen a ton of from the X-Men, although it feels like they were starting to edge in that direction from what I've seen in the Mutant Massacre. And I get the feeling things are going to get more dark from here as we creep closer and closer towards the Inferno crossover. But that's still a ways away from here, and in the meantime, at least, we still have this awesome cover. And just speaking about the art in this one, for the most part, pretty good. Nothing that really stands out as too awesome. I did have to remind myself a little bit that this was one of the bi-weekly issues. And thinking about it, there is, an element where you get some panels here and there that look like they were done pretty speedily. But, I mean, for the most part, it's still pretty fully realized, I would say. It feels just like Mark doesn't have the room still to create, like, anchor images, essentially. I don't know if that's really a concept he's knocking around in his head just yet. But, yeah, no, like, pretty full artwork here with just the odd page where he's having to speed things up a little bit. I think that's probably going to increase as we go on. Stuff like this felt pretty sped up. But yeah, doing okay. Just, nothing too flashy, apart from the cover, which is badass. And yeah, gets the job done, looks pretty great. But anyway, that's going to do it for this little Brood trilogy. And next issue, Mark gets an issue off so he can catch up. We're going to get some more Rick Leonardi, so that's always a good time. But for this one, that's going to do it. So thanks for watching, guys. If you like this one, please hit like, hit subscribe, hit the notifications so you know when the next one's coming out. Go over and subscribe on my Patreon. It gives you early access to everything I do, from the Blood Force stuff to the YouTube videos before they get uploaded to YouTube, as well as some Patreon exclusive content. You can also follow me on Instagram and DM me there for commissions, and you can join the Blood Force Discord server. But yeah, that's going to do it. Thanks again for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.